Why did Robert the Bruce kill his rival in a church? The shocking murder that led to Scotland's rise. What would you do if your greatest rival stood between you and the throne? Would you plot, negotiate, or, if all else failed, put a dagger through his heart? It was February 10th, 1306. The setting? Greyfriars Church, Dumfries. A place of peace, a house of God. Yet within its sacred walls, blood was about to be spilled. Robert the Bruce, Scotland's ambitious noble, stood face to face with John the Red Comyn, the man who stood in the way of his destiny. But here's the question. Was this a simple argument that spiraled into chaos, or was this murder premeditated? Why did Bruce, a man who would one day become Scotland's greatest king, choose the path of blood? What did Comyn say that sealed his fate? And how did a single stab inside a church ignite a rebellion that would change the course of history? Buckle up, because this is not just a story of kings and crowns. It's a tale of treachery, betrayal, and the brutal cost of power. And trust me, you'll want to stick around to the very end to see how Robert the Bruce, once an outlaw and a murderer, turned his darkest crime into Scotland's greatest victory. The flickering candlelight in the dimly lit chapel of Greyfriars Church cast eerie shadows on the cold stone walls. The air was heavy with the scent of damp wood and burning wax. It was February 10th, 1306, a day that would change Scottish history forever. A day when ambition, desperation, and destiny collided in a single act of violence. Robert the Bruce, Scotland's most ambitious nobleman, stood before his rival, John the Red Comyn. Their voices echoed through the sacred halls, carrying the weight of Scotland's fate. And then, steel flashed, blood spilled, and history took a turn no one saw coming. But how did it come to this? Why would Robert the Bruce, a man destined to be king, stain his hands with murder inside a house of God? Let's unravel the treachery, the battles, the schemes, and the deadly chess game that led to this moment, Scotland's darkest murder and its greatest uprising. Scotland, in the late 1200s, was a kingdom hanging by a thread. After King Alexander III's sudden death in 1286 and the tragic loss of his heir, the Scottish throne was left vacant. Enter Edward I of England, a man whose nickname, Hammer of the Scots, should tell you everything you need to know about his intentions. With Scotland in chaos, Edward played kingmaker, choosing John Balliol as his puppet ruler in 1292. But not everyone accepted Balliol. Among the Scottish nobility, two families were vying for the throne. The Bruces, a powerful noble house that claimed royal lineage and sought independence. The Comyns, equally influential but closely allied with England. John Comyn, also known as the Red Comyn, was a fierce defender of the English-backed government. He saw Robert the Bruce as a reckless threat. Meanwhile, Bruce, who had sworn loyalty to Edward but secretly burned for Scottish freedom, viewed Comyn as an obstacle to his destiny. This was not just politics. This was war waiting to happen. By 1306, the situation in Scotland was dire. Edward I had crushed rebellion after rebellion. William Wallace, Scotland's greatest warrior, had been executed in 1305, his severed head displayed on London Bridge. Scotland needed a new leader, someone bold enough to challenge England's rule. Bruce had a choice: bow to Edward and let Scotland remain under English rule, or take the throne himself. But there was one problem. John Comyn stood in his way. The two rivals arranged a secret meeting inside Greyfriars Church in Dumfries. The location was significant. A church was neutral ground, a place of peace. No one would dare draw a sword in a house of God, right? Except Robert the Bruce knew this was no ordinary meeting. Some say Bruce entered the church knowing exactly what he was about to do. Others believe the meeting started as a negotiation and turned into something far more deadly. Either way, Scotland would never be the same. Inside the church, Bruce and Comyn stood face to face. Bruce laid out his plan. Scotland needed a true king, one who would fight against England. He wanted Comyn's support. But the Red Comyn, ever the loyalist to Edward, saw Bruce as a traitor. "You seek the crown for yourself, Robert?" Comyn sneered. "You are a fool. Scotland will not follow you." Tensions rose. Harsh words turned to threats. And then, Comyn made a fateful mistake. According to some accounts, Comyn revealed that he had already informed Edward of Bruce's plot. If true, this meant one thing. Robert the Bruce was a dead man walking. Bruce's blood ran cold. His hand moved to his dagger. "You have betrayed me for the last time, Comyn," Bruce growled. Before Comyn could react, Bruce's blade plunged into his rival's chest. The red Comyn staggered back, blood pouring onto the church floor. He gasped, clutching his wound, but he was still alive. Bruce stormed out of the church, his heart pounding. His men, Kirkpatrick and Lindsay, met him outside. "Is he dead?" one asked. Bruce shook his head. Kirkpatrick sneered. "Then I'll make sure." He and Lindsay marched back into the church and finished the job. Blood soaked the altar. Scotland's history had been rewritten. Robert the Bruce had done the unthinkable. He had murdered his greatest rival in a church. But there was no turning back now. With Comyn dead, Bruce had one path forward. He had to seize the Scottish throne before Edward could react. Within weeks, on March 25, 1306, Robert the Bruce was crowned King of Scotland at Scone. But his troubles were far from over. Edward I, furious beyond belief, declared Bruce a traitor and unleashed an army to crush him. The Commons, thirsting for vengeance, aligned with England. Scotland was about to burn. Bruce's early reign was a disaster. Edward's forces hunted him down. His army was annihilated at the Battle of Methven, June 1306. His wife and daughter were captured and imprisoned. He became an outlaw, fleeing into the Scottish Highlands. For a time, he vanished. Legend says he hid in a cave, watching a spider repeatedly try to spin its web despite constant failure. Inspired by the creature's persistence, Bruce rallied his forces. By 1307, Edward I, the Great Hammer of the Scots, was dead. His less competent son, Edward II, took the throne, giving Bruce an opportunity. One by one, Bruce recaptured Scotland. In 1314, he crushed the English at the legendary Battle of Bannockburn, securing Scotland's independence. The man who had once been an outlaw was now Scotland's undisputed king. Robert the Bruce's rise was built on blood, betrayal, and brutal determination. Did he have to kill John Comyn? Perhaps. In a world ruled by swords, power was rarely won peacefully. Was it a sin to spill blood in a church? Most definitely. The Pope excommunicated Bruce for it, but history is written by the victors. Did it work? Without a doubt. Scotland would not be free today without that single fateful act. A lesson? Power is never given. It is taken. But at what cost? Robert the Bruce died in 1329, his body buried at Dunfermline Abbey, his heart sent on a crusade to Spain. His legacy? A free Scotland built with fire and steel. And so, dear viewers, if you've enjoyed this tale of power, betrayal, and triumph, make sure to follow us, subscribe, and click that notification button so you never miss another thrilling story from history's darkest and greatest moments.